July 26th at 10 a.m., the House Oversight Committee will hold a hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs, I prefer to call it UFOs. It will be held by the Oversight Committee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs. The witnesses will be as follows. David Grush is a decorated former combat officer who served in Afghanistan. He recently told the world news about his experiences serving on a UAP task force led by the U.S. Navy from 2019 to 2022. Commander David Fravor. He's a former Navy commander who shot the famous Tic Tac video that you've seen. It's on YouTube. It's 60 Minutes, did a special on it. He did that in 2004 during a routine training flight over the Pacific Ocean. Ryan Graves. He's a former Navy pilot. He reported multiple UAP encounters during training flights. An interesting thing about Ryan was that he warned the Pentagon that these encounters are putting our pilots at risk. He attended the hearing held by the House Intelligence Committee last year, but was not allowed to speak. If you all remember, he wasn't even allowed admittance. He had to have someone give him press credentials to get in, which I thought really stung. Last year, the House Intelligence Committee held a hearing on UAPs. They brought in some Pentagon bureaucrats who only had two answers to the questions they were asked. I don't know, but that is classified. This hearing is going to be different. We're going to have witnesses who can speak frankly to the public about their experiences. We've had a heck of a lot of pushback about this hearing. We've had members of Congress who fought us. We've had members of the intelligence community and also the Pentagon. Even NASA backed out on us. There are a lot of people who don't want this to come to light. I've even tried to introduce an amendment to the Federal Aviation Administration Reauthorization Bill, and all that would do would require the Federal Aviation Administration to report UAP sightings by commercial pilots to Congress. I was told the intelligence community shut it down. This is ridiculous, folks. They do exist or they don't exist. They keep telling us they don't exist, but they block every opportunity for us to get a hold of the information to prove that they do exist. And we're going to get to the bottom of it, dadgummit, whatever the truth may be. We're done with the cover-up. I want to introduce my friend Jared Moskowitz. He has a legal and an incredible analytical mind, and he's a friend of mine. Jared?
Thanks, Tim. Good morning, and I want to thank my colleagues behind me that we're all leading this effort on a bipartisan basis. And ultimately, it really is about getting to just greater government transparency. As Tim said, that, when we ask these questions, if the answers are there are no unidentified aerial phenomena, then say that. But that's not what the answers are. The answers are we can't tell you. And so that leads to speculation. And so this is something that has undoubtedly captured the public's attention in multiple administrations. And it's just finally time the U.S. government answered questions about what they know and when did they know it. Taxpayers are paying for programs that are keeping this information secret. They have a right to know where their dollars are going. And with claims coming forward, as technology is getting better, people are capturing things on their phones now, right? We need to know whether these things are they domestic, are they foreign, or are they something else, or do they not exist? And the government needs to have straight answers. And so the American people deserve to know the truth on this. Unnecessarily censoring things or overclassification is what leads to all of these theories that have been out there. So again, I want to thank my colleagues behind me for their leadership. And we look forward to having a productive hearing on topic on a bipartisan basis. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Representative Luna. She's from Florida. She is a military veteran. Her husband's a combat wounded veteran, and I'm proud to have her on our team.
Good morning, everyone. For decades, countless of Americans have questioned our government's lack of transparency regarding UAPs in our nation's airspace. These same questions have been echoed by many leaders on a bipartisan basis, from Jimmy Carter to Barack Obama, from Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump, from Marco Rubio to Chuck Schumer, from the former Director of National Intelligence, John Radcliffe, to current officials at the National Security Council. They have all called for disclosure of UAPs. If this was a court case, the court would be compelled compelled to take up the thousands of testimonies, images, videos, and eyewitness accounts from doctors, pilots, scientists, and active duty service members. The status quo on the part of the U.S. government has been to leave the American people in the dark regarding information of UAPs. They refuse to answer questions posed by whistleblowers, avoiding the concerns of Americans, and acknowledging that the possible threat of UAP poses to our national security as well as public safety. It is extremely unnecessary and an overclassification. If the last few months have taught me anything, especially in investigating this, it is that this issue is in the hands of the American people and they deserve answers. I just want to be fully transparent here. Myself, Representative Burchett and Representative Gates had attended an Air Force base, and we were blocked not only by the Pentagon but by the Department of the Air Force from seeing information, talking to witnesses. And after much arm twisting, we got some of the information. But the fact is that they answered to Congress and thus the American people. And any government entity that attempts to stonewall us is doing nothing in the vested interest of the American people. When I take at face value the numerous red box that we've been presented with, it leads me to believe that they are indeed hiding information. I look forward to bringing this topic to light and finding out the truth of what is really out there.
Next speaker, we represent Burleson. He and I traveled to our southern border a few months back, and we became really good friends. He has a really love for this country, and he, like the rest of us, like the truth. And he agrees with us. We need a lot of transparency. Representative Burleson.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for spearheading this effort. I'll start out by saying that I'm a skeptic on a lot of stuff. I come from a computer science background and finance background, so I tend to err on the side of things that I can see and touch. And I don't get into conspiracies, but too often the federal government works outside of the public eye, and in conspiracies and rumors tend to flourish in places where the federal government is silent or not transparent. The American people deserve to know what their tax dollars are funding and what the government knows. That's just plain simple. The other thing I think is important is that our servicemen and women who are risking their lives for this country and are encountering these devices, we owe it to them to find out what is in the air that might potentially harm their lives. Especially, what's disturbing is when we hear about the accounts of 14 near misses in air. Next week's hearing is about transparency. Like many Americans, I read David Grush's story when it first came out and watched the TV interviews. I was struck by the sheer amount of detail, so I was able to contact him and hear directly from him in a lengthy phone call interview. And after speaking with him, I was convinced that the American people deserve to hear from him directly. That's why I asked Chairman Comer to hold this hearing, and I'm grateful that the chairman has decided to hold a hearing so that we can ask questions and get the answers that the American people deserve. It is time for transparency, and I'll say one more thing. It's the responsibility of members on oversight this is our job. This is exactly what our responsibility is. So I'd like to thank Tim and my other colleagues for their leadership in putting this together. And I want to thank the chairman for his support.
I'll answer your question. I too would like to thank Chairman Comer and Speaker McCarthy for allowing us to do this. Yes, sir. Yeah, we were. Okay, well, and what Representative Luna and I experienced was our colleague Matt Gates was contacted by some folks and said some people would like to talk about some information, some things they'd seen. And we contacted the Air Force and we flew. We were told we were going to be briefed on this issue, UFO, UAP, I like UFO. And we got down there and it was the traditional skiff, James Bond stuff. You leave your phone, and we go in. And the synopsis had nothing to do. It was some pretty big, important stuff, but it was not anything to do with the UFO. And we stopped the thing rightfully right in the middle of it and said, hey, this is not what you all told us we were coming down here for. And they basically told us we're not going to give it to you. The arrogance of this general was beyond belief.
The Pentagon, this is Department of the Air Force. It was the commanding, yeah, of course. It was the commanding general of Eglin Air Force Base. And ultimately, even before we got down there, the Pentagon actually tried to cancel the field hearing. And also, it's important to note that these were whistleblowers, these were pilots that had come forward to Representative Gates' office with information saying this needs to be investigated. We have an increase in sightings in this region, and it's a cause for concern for national security reasons. We don't know what it is. So we went down there, we were stonewalled. They would not give us access to testimony from some of the pilots. They were hiding images and information.
We were told there was pictures available, which we still haven't seen.
And ultimately, what ended up happening is we had to actually call House Armed Services. Chairman Rogers got involved. The Pentagon got involved. The Department of the Air Force got involved. We actually got into an argument with the general of that base. And it's important to note that we were there simply to follow up on the whistleblowers that came forward with information. And so if the Department of the Air
Okay, family, I'm gonna stop right there. I just thought I would share this. To me, it's interesting, and I don't really believe in chariots as some of our people believe that we're going to be. When the Most High come back, He's gonna, take us up in the chariots and take us home, or whatever the case may be. But I don't believe that's scriptural. But I do believe, and the Bible does speak of other worlds, so we know that there is other worlds other than the world that we're in. To think that there's no other world would be arrogant, kind of full of oneself. But anyways, I wanted to share three scriptures, and then you all can go look at the video. The title of it is is at the very bottom of the video. The first scripture is Hebrew 1:2. It says, "Hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds." It's also found in Hebrews 11:3. It says, "Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of Elohim, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear." The last one is in Matthew 24, and it talks about he would have to cut the time short for the elect's sake because it's going to get so bad. And I really believe that we know that all this that's going on in the world today is just a fulfillment of the latter days. I know people say it's been happening, forever, but when the Most High says something's going to take place, and when He say He give us prophecy to look at, I think we shouldn't take that lightly, but really look at what He says, because it says that He is not man that He should lie. So he keeps His promise. It may not be in our time, but it says in the scripture that a day with the Lord is 1,000 years. So we may look at it as a long time, but in His eyes, it's just like yesterday. So we should thank Him for that, because that's mercy. Other than that, we all will be destroyed. So anyway, I'm going to read Matthew 24:22. It says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then if any man should say unto you, Lo, here is Yeshua, or Christ, there believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs, false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, and so much that if it was possible, they should deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before." So He said, look, I've warned you that these things are going to come to pass, but don't be deceived about it. So I don't know what, I'm not going to say there's anything fictitious behind what they're reporting, but we do know that we are living in the last days, and we know that there are other worlds. So if there's other worlds, that means there's other beings. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I say shalom.